August 17, 1943, the phone rang at Chequers. Churchill's military secretary stood in the doorway, his face carefully neutral. "Prime Minister, there's news from Sicily." Churchill looked up from his papers. "Well, out with it." "Has Montgomery taken Messina?" The secretary's pause lasted only a second, but Churchill caught it. "Sir, American forces have entered Messina. General Patton's troops reached the city this morning." Churchill set down his pen, very slowly. "Say that again." And in that moment, everything Churchill believed about British military supremacy and American deference shattered like glass. The Americans hadn't just supported the operation, they'd won it. And Montgomery, Britain's hero, had lost a race he didn't even know he was running. 6 months earlier, Churchill had orchestrated the Sicily invasion with the precision of a theater director. Operation Husky would be Britain's showcase. Montgomery would capture Messina. The world would watch British military excellence triumph. American forces would play the supporting role, protecting flanks, learning from professionals. It was more than strategy. It was survival. Britain had been bleeding for 4 years. Defeats in France, Norway, Greece, Singapore. The empire was exhausted, bankrupt, clinging to relevance by its fingernails. Churchill needed a victory that proved Britain still mattered. He had the perfect champion, Field Marshal Montgomery, the victor of El Alamein, Britain's first genuine hero of the war. Montgomery would lead the 8th Army up Sicily's eastern coast, the direct route, the Glory Road. Messina would be his prize, and through him, Britain's. The Americans under Patton would take secondary routes. Western Sicily, flank protection, necessary work certainly, but not the work that made headlines. Churchill wrote to General Brooke in May 1943. His words revealed everything. "Sicily will demonstrate to our American allies the value of British military experience. Montgomery will show them how proper planning achieves decisive results. This will be good for the alliance. The Americans will see why British strategic judgment should carry weight." The assumption was baked into every word. Britain lead. America followed, Britain taught, America learned. Churchill had met Patton briefly in Casablanca. He'd found him theatrical, profane, almost comical. A soldier who wore ivory-handled revolvers and quoted poetry, aggressive certainly, but hardly someone who would challenge the established order. British intelligence reports confirmed Churchill's assessment. Patton was capable but inexperienced. Effective in North Africa, but always under British oversight. He would follow the plan as written. What Churchill never imagined was that George Patton had read that plan and decided it was bullshit. Patton wasn't interested in supporting roles. He wasn't interested in learning from British professionals. He was interested in one thing, winning, and he turned Operation Husky into a race. The moment Patton's boots hit Sicilian soil, he understood the game Churchill was playing. Montgomery got the prestige objective. Americans got the scraps. Not acceptable. Patton studied the map. Montgomery's route was shorter, true. Direct coastal road to Messina, but it was also obvious. The Germans knew that's where the main attack would come. They'd reinforce it heavily. The northern route was longer. Mountain roads, difficult terrain, but less defended. And if his troops moved fast enough, really pushed themselves, they could reach Messina first. Patton called his division commanders together on July 13th, 3 days after the invasion began. His words were recorded by his aide. "Gentlemen, the British think this is their show. They've given us the minor leagues. I say the hell with that. We're going to beat Montgomery to Messina. I don't care if we have to drive through the night. I don't care if the roads are impossible. We're going to get there first and show them what American soldiers can do." One of his colonels asked the obvious question. "Sir, isn't Messina assigned to Montgomery?" Patton's response was pure ice. "I don't see Montgomery's name painted on it, do you?" What followed was one of the most audacious competitive drives in military history. Patton pushed his 7th Army up Sicily's northern coast at speeds that defied logistics. He bypassed German positions rather than fighting for every hill. He used amphibious end runs to leapfrog ahead. He kept his troops moving 18, 20 hours a day. Montgomery, fighting the heavily defended eastern route, advanced methodically, professionally, Exactly as British doctrine prescribed. He faced tough German resistance. He took casualties. He followed the plan. But Patton was racing. British headquarters began noticing something strange in early August. American forces were advancing faster than projected, much faster. General Alexander, the British overall commander, assumed Patton was facing lighter opposition. He wasn't. He was just moving faster. By August 15th, Patton's lead elements were within striking distance of Messina. Montgomery was still miles away, grinding through German defenses. Patton sent a message to Alexander requesting permission to enter Messina. It was technically a courtesy. Practically, it was notification. He was going in whether permission came or not. Alexander, realizing what was happening, tried to slow Patton down. Continue your advance, but coordinate with 8th Army for the final approach to Messina. Patton read the message and threw it aside. Coordinate my ass. We're going in. August 17th, 0800 hours. American troops of the 3rd Infantry Division entered Messina. They found the city largely abandoned. The Germans had evacuated across the strait to Italy, but that didn't matter. What mattered was the American flag going up first. Patton arrived 2 hours later in a command car, dressed immaculately, both pistols on his hips. He strode to the city center like a conquering Caesar. Photographers captured every moment. Montgomery's forces arrived that afternoon. 4 hours too late. Montgomery's face when he learned Americans had beaten him to Messina was, according to witnesses, like thunder wrapped in ice. He said nothing publicly. But privately to his staff he was volcanic. Patton has turned a serious military operation into a circus. He's undermined Allied coordination for personal glory. The news reached Churchill at Chequers that afternoon. His military secretary delivered it with careful neutrality. But Churchill heard the subtext immediately. American forces have entered Messina. Churchill's first reaction was confusion. What are Americans doing in Messina? That's Montgomery's objective. Sir, General Patton's forces reached the city this morning. They captured it. Montgomery's forces are several hours behind. Churchill stood up from his desk. Very slowly, Patton has done what? His secretary explained. The race, the speed, the competition nobody authorized. Churchill's face went through several colors. According to his secretary's diary, the Prime Minister's immediate response was explosive. Patton has turned a coordinated operation into a bloody competition. Where was Eisenhower? Where was Alexander? How did no one stop this? But even as fury burned through him, Churchill's political instincts kicked in. This was a disaster, not a military disaster. A political one. The entire Sicily campaign had been designed to showcase British leadership. Now Americans had captured the prize. The American press would celebrate Patton's triumph. British newspapers couldn't ignore it. The narrative Churchill had carefully constructed was collapsing in real time. He demanded to speak with Montgomery immediately. The call connected 20 minutes later. Montgomery's voice was tight with controlled rage. Prime Minister, the Americans have made a mockery of operational planning. Patton treated this campaign like a sporting event. Churchill sympathized, but he also recognized reality. Britain needed American support. Antagonizing the Americans over this would be catastrophic, but allowing them to claim Sicily as an American victory would destroy British prestige. He needed to thread an impossible needle. Churchill composed a message to Roosevelt that praised Allied cooperation while subtly emphasizing British forces had faced stronger German resistance. It was diplomatic language trying to diminish Patton's achievement without overtly criticizing American forces. Roosevelt read between the lines immediately. He understood Churchill's frustration, but he also saw opportunity. He replied with a message celebrating Patton's aggressive spirit and operational brilliance. The subtext was clear. America was no longer the junior partner. Churchill's public statement, released August 18th, was a masterpiece of damage control. The successful conquest of Sicily represents a triumph of Allied cooperation. Field Marshal Montgomery's 8th Army defeated strong German defenses along the eastern approaches, while General Patton's 7th Army advanced rapidly to secure Messina. This combined operation demonstrates the strength of the Allied partnership. Every word was carefully calibrated. It acknowledged American success while emphasizing British combat against strong German defenses. It credited both commanders equally, though the race told a different story. It framed Sicily as cooperation, not competition, but privately, Churchill was seething. In a cabinet meeting on August 19th, he spoke with unfiltered bitterness. Cabinet minutes recorded his words. General Patton's race to Messina, while demonstrating American aggressive spirit, undermined careful operational planning and turned a serious military campaign into a publicity stunt. We must question whether American commanders understand the difference between proper military operations and theatrical gestures. To Alan Brooke, his chief military advisor, Churchill was even more blunt. We handed the Americans a supporting role and they turned it into a leading part. This is what happens when we don't maintain operational control. From now on, British commanders must ensure Americans don't have opportunity to grab glory that rightfully belongs to British forces. Brooke's private diary reveals he disagreed. He thought Patton's success demonstrated American capability Churchill needed to acknowledge. But he didn't argue. The Prime Minister wasn't ready to hear it. Churchill also had to manage Montgomery, who was absolutely devastated by the very public humiliation. Montgomery wanted to file formal military complaints about Patton violating operational boundaries and command arrangements. Churchill urged restraint with fatherly advice. "Monty, you fought absolutely brilliantly against substantially stronger resistance. Every military professional understands and appreciates that. Don't let Patton drag you down into unseemly public competition. Maintain your dignity and let American theatrics speak for themselves." But Montgomery's humiliation was painfully real, and Churchill felt personally responsible. He promised Montgomery glory and international recognition. Instead, he delivered public embarrassment. The weeks following Messina's capture forced Churchill into deeply uncomfortable reassessment of fundamental assumptions. The Sicily campaign had been specifically designed to demonstrate continued British military leadership. Instead, it had revealed that Americans, particularly under aggressive commanders like Patton, could decisively outperform British forces in operational tempo and achieving objectives. Churchill's private correspondence from late August 1943 shows him wrestling with brutal truths he didn't want to accept. He wrote to Field Marshal Jan Smuts, his trusted South African confidant, with remarkable honesty. "The Americans have proven substantially more capable than we initially assumed. Patton, for all his theatrical nonsense and Wild West showmanship, demonstrated operational speed and aggressive fighting spirit that our own commanders simply lack. I genuinely fear we British have become far too cautious, too obsessively concerned with minimizing casualties, too methodical and slow. The Americans, with their vast resources and aggressive commanders, may very soon eclipse British military contributions entirely. This thought keeps me awake at night." This was an extraordinary admission from Winston Churchill. He'd spent years promoting British military excellence and experience, but Messina had shown him an uncomfortable reality. American forces weren't junior partners learning from wise British teachers. They were complete equals, perhaps more than equals in certain crucial respects. Patton's race had proven conclusively that Americans could plan and execute highly complex military operations without any British guidance whatsoever, without British permission, without British oversight, and achieve dramatically better results. Churchill began pushing his own military leaders to adopt more aggressive operational methods. At a Chiefs of Staff meeting in September, he said something that would have been absolutely unthinkable just 6 months earlier. Patton embarrassed Montgomery at Messina because he moved 3 times faster and fought more aggressively. I want our generals to study exactly what Patton did and learn from it. Yes, gentlemen, learn from the Americans. We've been fighting this war since 1939, but that doesn't mean we can't learn from commanders who are achieving superior results. This represented a seismic shift in Churchill's fundamental strategic thinking. Before Sicily, he'd viewed American forces as brave and enthusiastic but inexperienced and unsophisticated, needing patient British guidance. After Messina, he recognized their operational methods, less cautious, more aggressive, focused on speed rather than textbook perfection, were achieving results British methods simply couldn't match. Churchill also understood the profound political implications. Britain's ability to shape overall Allied strategy depended entirely on maintaining rough military parity with American forces. If American armies consistently and obviously outperformed British forces, Roosevelt would naturally give American generals more weight in all strategic decisions. Churchill's influence would evaporate. The special relationship between Britain and America couldn't be based on assumptions of British superiority anymore. Americans like Patton simply wouldn't accept that relationship structure. The partnership would have to be genuinely equal, with British experience and American resources and aggressiveness combining as true partners. Most significantly, Churchill began understanding that the global balance of power was shifting beneath his feet. Britain's era of dominance was ending. America's century was beginning. Messina was the moment that truth became undeniable. When Patton's infamous slapping incidents became public in November 1943, Churchill faced another crucial test of his evolving views. Part of him, the bitter part still angry about Messina, wanted to use the scandal to permanently diminish Patton's reputation. Here was definitive proof this aggressive American was fundamentally undisciplined and completely unsuitable for high command responsibilities. But Churchill's strategic mind also recognized a different reality. If Patton were relieved and sent home in disgrace, Allied forces would lose their single most aggressive and effective operational commander. That would hurt Allied military effectiveness regardless of British pride. He privately advised Eisenhower to retain Patton despite the controversy. A truly remarkable recommendation given his initial deep skepticism about American commanders. By 1944, when Patton's Third Army raced across France at speeds that rewrote military history, Churchill had fully and completely accepted what Messina had taught him. He wrote in his personal diary, "Patton is achieving advance rates that exceed anything we British have accomplished in this entire war. His methods remain theatrical and personally distasteful. His personality remains extremely difficult. But results matter infinitely more than style or personal comfort. If Britain had a general with Patton's aggressive spirit and operational tempo, combined with Montgomery's careful planning and attention to detail, we would have the absolutely perfect commander. As we don't have such a commander, we must be genuinely grateful the Americans have Patton." Churchill's final assessment of Patton came in his war memoirs, published in the 1950s when he could reflect with some historical distance. General Patton was among the most controversial Allied commanders of the war. Celebrated by some as a bold warrior, criticized by others as reckless and dangerously undisciplined. My own view evolved dramatically throughout the conflict. Initially, I found him theatrical and completely unsuitable for high command responsibilities. Sicily fundamentally changed my assessment. His capture of Messina, achieved through pure operational audacity and relentless speed, demonstrated capabilities I simply had not expected from American commanders. Patton proved conclusively that American forces possessed not merely material superiority but genuine operational excellence. Then Churchill added the most revealing passage of all. "Messina taught me that the Americans would absolutely not accept supporting roles in this alliance. They demanded and fully deserved equal partnership. Patton's race to Sicily's ultimate prize forced me to recognize this reality much sooner than I might have otherwise. The special relationship between Britain and America would have to be built on completely genuine equality, not British superiority and American deference. This was perhaps deeply uncomfortable for British national pride, but it was absolutely necessary for Allied success and for the crucial post-war partnership that would define the entire Western alliance for generations." Churchill's journey from confidently expecting British leadership to reluctantly accepting genuine partnership was painful and slow, but Messina marked the irreversible turning point. The precise moment he recognized that American military capability meant Britain could no longer assume automatic leadership of the Western alliance. The student had decisively become the equal. And Churchill, pragmatist above everything else, adjusted his strategy accordingly. August 17, 1943 didn't just mark the capture of one Sicilian city. It marked the moment Churchill's carefully constructed world order shattered completely. One American general's sheer audacity forced Britain's greatest leader to confront the most uncomfortable truth of his career. The British Empire's sunset had irreversibly begun, America's century was inevitable, and no amount of careful diplomatic language could change that fundamental reality. Patton didn't just win a race to Messina. He won the future of the Western world. If this deep dive into the precise moment Churchill realized the global balance of power had shifted forever absolutely fascinated you, then you need to subscribe to this channel immediately. We bring you the untold stories from history's greatest conflicts. The moments that changed everything, the private reactions that reveal how leaders really thought when their entire world was collapsing around them. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next video. Drop a comment below about Churchill and Patton's complex relationship and how it shaped the post-war world. Share this with anyone who appreciates real history beyond the sanitized official version taught in schools. Thanks for watching. Sometimes the most important lessons come from the victories we didn't plan and couldn't control.